We had sharks on planet Earth before the North Star existed. These are really ancient predators, in many ways like modern dinosaurs. We've single-handedly managed to reduce their populations to the point of some of them not being around in the next decades. When I dive with some of the sharks here that are critically endangered, I think, okay, my grandkids might not get to see this if, we don't do the work now in the next 10 years.
Welcome to Saving the World from Bad Ideas. I'm Mark Lynas, and I've had a few bad ideas in my time. I used to go out in the nighttime to destroy GMO crops, and I also opposed nuclear power. But then when I looked at the science, I found I got it wrong. Oops! I've learned the hard way that none of us are right all the time. So now I'm here to challenge the assumptions that we all too often take for granted, because the future depends on us getting it right. Hello and welcome to Saving the World from Bad Ideas. Today I'm talking with Arzucan Askin, aka Zuzu, who's an incredible conservation scientist currently working in the Maldives on shark conservation with an NGO she co-founded called Miyaru. Zuzu, I won't go through your whole CV because it would take pretty much a whole hour. But, the best bits, I think you're a National Geographic Explorer, a graduate of Oxford University's Seascape Ecology Lab, HSE Class 4 commercial diver. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds impressive. Anyway, that's just a few things. Zuzu, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. It's good to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So I guess we with the show, we do a bad idea and you're combating the bad idea. And I guess the most obvious bad idea with sharks, which is the main thing you work on, is that they're scary. And I guess, there's nobody better really I can think of to teach us a bit more about why sharks are, I don't know, maybe they're A, not scary, and B, a critically important part of the marine ecosystem. Apparently, I was doing some research on this. Fear of sharks actually has its own word, galleophobia. You know this, right?
Yeah.
And I bet you do. So tell us a bit, give us like the basic grounding on sharks, shark life, as it were.
The idea that sharks are scary is actually one of the biggest challenges that I face in my work as a shark conservationist. Because most people, the second I say sharks, they don't want to hear about their ecological importance or that some species are critically endangered. They just hear, oh my God, big scary monster. I work and dive with sharks pretty much every day, including large sharks like tiger sharks, which are classified as the more scary or more dangerous sharks by some people or by media. But the reality is the complete opposite of what you would see on TV or in shows or even how the media reports it. We jump down to dive with 10 to 20 tiger sharks at one time every single day. And we are literally circled by them continuously during our dives. And there's not a single moment generally when it's scary. And when I say we come close, we come, this close to the sharks sometimes. And it's just a normal day at work. It's what drew me to the Maldives, actually, because Maldivians are probably, I might be biased, but the best shark divers on the planet. I haven't been anywhere else where people are this happy and comfortable with them. A lion would not let you do what a tiger shark lets you do in the water this close. But yeah, it is a pretty big, pretty resilient bad idea that seems to make its rounds through society across the world and is very, very hard to combat. So we work hard on fighting that every day by bringing people in the water with them and by busting all these misconceptions. And our guests always come with their own misconceptions. And before the dive briefing, they have a million questions. What if I do this? Will the shark eat me? And we're like, no, don't worry. We do this every day. You will not be eaten, we promise.
You haven't had anyone eaten yet, right?
No. There are a few people I'd like to be eaten by a shark, but no, we haven't had anyone yet.
And has anyone even been bitten? I mean, are there any? The tiger sharks are, they're pretty serious predators, aren't they? So you can't, you don't mess about with them. But what's the actual relative risks that people are running diving with them?
We haven't had a tiger shark fatality in the Maldives yet. Unlike any other place around the world, there's a few contributing factors to this. One is that most Maldivians eat fish 3 times a day, and the islands are made of sand. So all the organic waste that we generate is thrown into the sea and has been for hundreds of years. Now, if you imagine hundreds of islands with, a population of several 100,000 people that all eat fish, that's a lot of fish waste that goes in the ocean daily, which means a lot of food for scavenging predators like sharks. Tiger sharks are actually quite lazy. They prefer to scavenge over, actively spending energy and hunting. And why run and swim after a fish when you can just stop by a local harbor where the fishermen discard fish every day, in the hundreds of kilos.
I actually think it's the fault of Jaws, the
Yeah,
movie. When was it? Sometime in the 70s. Certainly, you weren't born then. I was just about born, and I do remember seeing it and being absolutely terrified. And I think the strapline was, "Oh, don't, you'll never go in the water again," or something like that. I mean, not
yeah,
really a great advertisement for for marine conservation. Actually, I found out the guy who wrote the book, the original Jaws book, Peter Benchley, he was called. Died a few years ago. Spent the rest of his life pretty much campaigning in favor of sharks because he realized he'd done this awful and Spielberg as
yeah.
well, who made the movie, that they basically destroyed. People went out killing sharks. It was the absolute opposite of what you actually want people to know about sharks, wasn't it? I mean, do you still look back on Jaws as being an important moment in this issue?
Absolutely. It's sort of the biggest contributing factor to why there is this mass hysteria and panic around the world with regards to sharks. I mean, you have many countries like Australia, for example, that have shark control programs or shark safety barriers. So the whole idea is keeping sharks away from people in the water and like barricading or seemingly barricading parts of the water off. But the reality is, you never fully enclosing a space. So the animals are still obviously coming close to shore because that's what they do. It's where they live. And it's something that I find really fascinating is the contrast between the Maldives and other countries. So I think the Jaws effect hasn't really reached the Maldives in the same way. And I think it's because sharks are so common here that people didn't buy into that monster image because they see sharks everywhere. You go to any local island, any harbor, you're going to see, either a large shark or a small shark, and generally in very large numbers. And so for the people here, it's a cool movie that they watch, but it hasn't sort of tapped into that primal instinct of fear because it's something they already know. But for the rest of the world, that movie really tickled that very primitive part of our human brain that is scared of the unknown and that is scared of big predators. And that's something that's to some degree really etched into our DNA. Is something that's really hard to overcome for most people that obviously don't interact with sharks ever. And whatever the first thing is you hear about an animal is the thing that you're going to remember. It's the same with bears or wolves. Many people fear them. They're like, oh my God, if I see a bear while hiking, I would be so terrified. But then, people that live in forest areas or areas with wolves and bears, they're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a wild animal. It's gonna do what any wild animal does, as do lions, as do elephants. Elephants are way more dangerous than sharks. An elephant will actually actively charge you, trying to hurt you. A shark, if it comes close, isn't actively trying to hurt you. It's either, mistaking you for prey or coming to check you out and being curious.
I've worked, in the Maldives for over a span of time myself. I was originally hired by then President Mohammed Nasheed in 2009 as climate advisor. So I worked a bit with his government, and I think one of the best things they did was, I think it was in 2010, they did a shark fishing ban for the whole country and just declared their whole EEZ a shark sanctuary. Tell us what impact that's had on shark populations.
For the time especially, it was a revolutionary move. It was the second shark sanctuary in the world after Palau. And to this day, the only shark sanctuary at national scale within the entire Indian Ocean region. Just below us is Chagos Archipelago, the British Indian Ocean Territory. That's also a shark sanctuary, but it was just declared as a no-take zone. So any form of sort of fishing, including sharks, is prohibited. Whereas the Maldives Shark Sanctuary is very specific for sharks. And what that did was create a safe haven within the region. I mean, I call it the Galápagos of the Indian Ocean because it is. If you look north, east, south, west of us, everyone is fishing sharks, with the exception of Chagos. But Chagos is a military base. It's not a fully inhabited country in the same way, right? And that means that it's a really important place to ensure the survival of a lot of shark species for the next decades to come, especially many of the critically endangered species like great hammerhead sharks, scalloped hammerhead sharks, oceanic white-tip sharks, some of the ocean giants that people, travel the world to see and experience. And we're one of the places that doesn't fish them. So it was a big symbolic gesture, but also for the populations of sharks back then, it meant that they were able to bounce back. And the numbers at the time were still higher than in other countries, because the Maldives is a relatively small country that never had like massive industrial fishing in the way we're used to in other parts of the world. But now, as a shark sanctuary, it meant that shark populations really had a chance to bounce back, and we see that on dives. You go on a channel dive, you see hundreds of grey reef sharks. You come to Formula, our resident tiger shark population is almost at 300 ID'd individuals. It's the largest tiger shark aggregation in the world, confirmed to date. And you go to any other islands, you have leopard sharks in abundance, tiny reef sharks popping all over the places. It's a shark heaven, really, in many, many ways. So it's a remarkable place for wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that I really remember, just walking down a Maldivian beach, and you'll see these little pup reef sharks, I guess, black tips probably.
Yeah.
And they're just a few feet offshore. Their fins are above the water, and they're so cute. They're like literally like little, they're like dog pups. They are so cute, aren't they?
Yeah. Super cute. And they're everywhere. It's like we would have birds in the trees. The Maldives Islands just have baby sharks in the lagoons.
And say baby shark, you'll set me off. Having then you have that stupid song in your head for ages. Speaking of which, haven't you got a program called Mama Shark?
Yes. So last
Tell us
year
about that.
we
And don't
last year
sing a
we
song.
It's my favorite project I've done to date. So last year we launched a collaborative project between Miyaru NGO and two of the local dive centers here in Formula, to conduct the world's first free-swimming ultrasound scans on tiger sharks. So normally to scan the pregnant mums, you have to catch them and hook them, which is a very stressful process for the animal. But because of how sort of gentle the sharks are here and how accessible they are, we brought over a collaborator from the US, Dr. James Silikowski, who has a very special ultrasound unit that's basically wireless underwater. So we don't need to be tethered to a cable up on the boat upstairs. And yeah, basically it was a cow ultrasound in a modified underwater housing, and we scanned as many of the pregnant female sharks as we could possibly do within the time frame that we had, and we confirmed that over 90% of the girls that we scanned were pregnant, which makes Formula also the first confirmed gestation ground for tiger sharks in the region. Very exciting. And I definitely had a moment where I cried underwater when I had one of the scans up and I was holding the screen. And the shark we scanned was about 4 meters long. And the pups that we got on screen captured, they were 10 centimeters. They were this big. And I was underwater, like in my mask, going, oh my God. I got so emotional because many of the sharks, I first came here almost 4 years ago. But, some of my colleagues and friends and dive guides on the island, they've been here for over a decade. And they know a lot of the sharks by name and they know them all. They've watched them over the years. So to see a friend almost and be pregnant and to confirm that scientifically was a very, very exciting project for all of us.
Yeah, I think this has to be the coolest project we've ever heard about on the show. Don't you agree, producer Rob? Yeah, he's giving us a good a grin. So, and also it's been you published a paper in Frontiers in Marine Science in the Scientific Journal.
We did, yeah,
which I was looking at. Tell us, I don't understand how you ultrasound scan a shark. Do you need to? Does the probe actually need to be in contact with them? And these are free swimming tiger sharks, large creatures, swimming around in the ocean. Literally, how do you do this in terms of the logistics?
Yeah, it's not as complicated as it would sound. So how the diving here in Formula is set up is that the tiger shark dive happens at the harbor entrance, which is where the fishermen historically and actually still to this day dump their fish waste. And what the dive guides have started to do over the years is to take some of the tuna heads and hide them under rock piles, which brings the sharks in that are coming in anyway. And then the sharks circle around the rock pile and they sniff the rock pile. And while they're occupied sort of sniffing the rock pile, trying to find where the scent is coming from, they're relatively still, and it gives us a few seconds to just hold the ultrasound probe up to their belly. If we can touch the belly, we get a deeper scan, but water also transmits part of the signal. So even if we're just within a few centimeters range of the animal, we still get a really good reading. And that's the joy of working underwater compared to land, because on land you would definitely have to make contact. That being said, there's a few sharks where the probe made contact. I think you'll see a video on my Instagram as well. And it's they really don't care. They're so occupied trying to find the tuna head in the rocks that it's very possible here. And that's because, they're well adapted to this form of diving, which has been happening for a relatively long time, but also because there's that constant sort of provisioning, but unintended provisioning through the discard of the fish waste. And we're actually planning phase 2. So the dive centers that we worked with, Formula Dives and Pelagic Divers, and Miyaru are getting together now to plan the second stage of the project, to do more scans, hopefully to be involving more dive centers as well. And we're very excited. It's a very cool, very big project that, we've all been dreaming about doing. And definitely one of the most exciting things to study about sharks is the pregnancies. And it helps a lot with busting the big scary monster myth, because an ultrasound image is a very relatable thing to most people on the planet. And when you display sharks as mothers, not just monsters, it's really an amazing way to connect people with the animal in a way that they have never, ever thought about before. I say, oh, I'm going to show you an ultrasound image, and I show the scan. I don't always say what it is. And people are like, oh, that's so cute. What is it? And I'm like, oh, it's a tiger shark. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's just like with your baby. It's just replaced the baby shape with a shark shape. And so in terms of conservation and science communication, storytelling, I think this is also one of those projects that has a big potential for shifting the way people see sharks through science and through data.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's like sharks as mums with,
Mm-hmm.
and so they give birth to live pups, right? Tell us a bit more
Yes.
about how how gestation works in tiger sharks, and the females, I believe. I mean, they're hanging around presumably because it's safe, it's a safe space, and they get fed and whatever. But like, how does this actually work in nature?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a scientific confirmation yet of why we have this large aggregation. So there are, several very obvious factors that we just need to prove. I mean, one of them is the geography and the sort of geomorphology of the island, and as a pinnacle that rises from the deep. So we have, deep water, very nutrient-rich water with a lot of upwelling and downwelling, easy access to large prey populations like tuna and other schools of fish. And then we obviously have Formula being one of the biggest cities of the Maldives with 11,000 residents. So that's a lot of fish waste going in the water. So a very steady food supply and food source, which obviously for mothers that have high energy demands in that stage of their life where they're trying to eat for 2, or in our case it would be for 2, in their case it's eating for up to 40. It's the perfect place for pregnant moms to come and hang out and constantly get their sort of additional snacks and food supply. But yeah, they carry for over a year, so between 12 to 14, 15 months. Give birth to up to 40 pups, generally speaking. The numbers vary from region to region and from some of the studies. And then when they're born, they come out as fully baked little predators, ready to hunt, ready to be completely independent. The mums don't look after their young. So they give live birth, but they're not mammals. Basically, the eggs hatch inside the uterus of the mother, and then they're pushed out. And yeah, ready to roll. It's amazing. We have sightings from fishermen from the northern and central atolls of pups about, this big. And it's amazing to see that they're born so ready for their bigger life in the ocean ahead.
So when they're born, they're about half a meter long or a bit longer?
Generally around like 40 centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
And is that the
That's one.
case for all of the sharks that you see? I've seen like these eggs that I think they used to be called fisherman's purses or something.
Mermaid's
Yeah,
purses.
mermaid's purse. That's it. So some of them also have eggs as well, right?
Yeah. So there's different forms of reproduction. So there's viviparous, which means live birth. There's ovoviviparous, live birth, well, birth through eggs. Ovo is egg. So there's also sharks that will lay eggs, and then the young will hatch from the eggs. So basically, they're offloading that process that would happen on the inside to the outside. Like leopard sharks, for example, they will do that. We also have them in the Maldives. They lay these cute little pouches with the pups that they attach to sort of rock or sand or parts of the reef. And then there are sharks that will eat each other in the mother's womb, and only one pup per
No
uterus
way.
is born,
That's not very
like the
cute.
sand. Yeah, like the sand tiger sharks. So really survival of the fittest, even before
Wow.
birth. um,
Well, that's not cute at all. That shouldn't be allowed. Eating each other as babies. I tell you what, I'd really like to hear more about is like what the attitude is to sharks in the Maldives, because I know you've done a lot of research of this. You spoke, you live in Formula, which is a local island with 11,000 people, fishermen, everyone there, dive people, um, and also we're both on the same WhatsApp list of the Maldives Ocean Alliance, and
Yeah.
every now and then it pings up that the government's trying to reintroduce shark fishing, or they're trying to rescind the ban. Most recently, I think they're trying to restart a fishery of a particular shark called the gulper shark. So tell us, like, what the situation is politically with shark fishing at the moment.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's no clear-cut answer to the Maldives' perception of sharks. I would say sort of the general consensus that most people are really appreciative of the sharks and value them. The dive community definitely does. I mean, I don't know a single dive guide that doesn't love sharks. Forget about liking or enjoying diving with them, love them. Most fishermen actually very much respect them and understand their importance, and also use them as sort of almost collaborators in fishing by following certain sharks or looking for certain species of shark to find a specific fish that they're looking for. But then, of course, like in every country that has predators, you're going to have human-wildlife conflict where the predators are perceived as a threat to, in this case, fishing. In other countries, it's farming. And there has been, obviously, because of the bounce back of shark populations after the shark fishing ban, there is this perception that the sharks have increased, which they have, but they're basically coming back to net healthier levels. But there's the perception that there's too many sharks and depredation is increasing. So sharks biting off or completely taking away the catch of fishermen as they're fishing. So there are some groups that are feeling like sharks maybe should be fished again because there's so many, and they either, don't like them because of the depredation, or because they feel, well, if there's so many, we should benefit from them commercially. But then there's also a very large number of people that understand that shark fishing in any form wouldn't be good for the country. Gulper sharks are an interesting case. So they're a deep sea shark species that, most people have never heard about. They're very beautiful, big green eyes, very long, brown, slender bodies, but they have incredible characteristics, much more similar to mammals than to sharks or other fish. So they take up to 20 years to mature before they're able to reproduce. It's a very long time. And they only produce like 2 to 3 pups every few years. Whereas fish, they'll lay thousands of eggs and have thousands of offspring. Sharks, between 10 to 100 pups. And then in the case of gulpers, you have those characteristics that make them really vulnerable to fishing, because if you catch them before they're 20 years old, that's one less mother that can reproduce, right? And if you start catching them in large numbers, they're not going to be able to bounce back fast enough because of how slow they reproduce. And the gulper shark fishery here actually collapsed, or based on the fishing data that we have available, which is not much. And it was it collapsed to the point that the liver oil export stopped, and then shortly after the shark fishing ban was introduced.
You say about liver oil exports. So
Yes.
why were these sharks being fished at all? And so this was previous to the 2010 ban. Gulper
Yeah.
sharks were targeted as the species for this
Yeah.
particular product, liver oil.
Yes. So gulper sharks, or many deep sea sharks in general, have very, very large livers that take up the majority of their body cavity. And the liver has a very sort of thick, viscous oil that can be extracted by boiling the liver. And historically, in many island nations, that liver oil was used to varnish boats. It's very waterproof. Pretty remarkable stuff, really. And so you have old photos of donis in the Maldives being painted with this liver oil to be waterproof. It was also used for medicinal purposes, wound healing especially. And the liver oil exports in the Maldives only really started because Japanese buyers started to show interest. But now globally, the demand for liver oil is going up, primarily for biomedical research, vaccines. So liver oil is found in a lot of vaccines and beauty products as a sort of additive. And the luxury cosmetics industry.
Vaccines, right? That's it. I'm anti-vax in that case. If you have to use shark liver oil to,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
presumably there's alternatives for all these things. You don't need to paint your Donny boats in the Maldives with shark liver oil now. There'll be synthetic
Yeah.
alternatives, and there is for everything. I mean, you see this
There
for
is.
all. So tell us why this is coming back up as a commercial opportunity in the eyes of some fishermen.
There's multiple theories. I mean, one of one of the theories that I hear a lot from the local community is that, this is a part of a political campaign promise to the communities in the north that had shark fishing, and then when shark fishing stopped, basically didn't have an income replacement like big tourism. So communities that ended up losing out because of the shark fishing ban, at least economically. But then it's also, the global context of some of the demand for these products really increasing, in the Maldives as an ocean nation wanting to maximize its marine resources, which is fish and fish are wildlife. But, for many countries that have such large stocks of fish, that's what powers the economy. And here it's very much the same. So there's this idea that by bringing back gulper shark fishing, it can be a form of fishing that doesn't hurt tourism, because it's, not a species group that is targeted by tourists. This is a deep sea shark. And it's a way to bring income back to some islands that would benefit from shark fishing. The catch is that it wouldn't be very long lasting. It would collapse in a few years if it takes off at all, given that the numbers are so low. But B is that the method used is basically deep set long lining or baited hooks. And that would also cause all of the other shark species that we do, have tourism with, like hammerhead sharks, tiger sharks, thresher sharks, to also be caught. But that's something that most people aren't aware of, because they hear deep sea shark fishing and they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't concern us, it's fine. Because most people don't care about deep sea sharks, unfortunately, because they don't have a day-to-day interaction or relation with them.
What's the Maldives like to work? For you as a woman as well. Do you have to? Is it quite? It's quite conservative. Some islands. I don't know what formula's like. I've not been there, but is it challenging? Is it tough, or is it generally pretty relaxed?
It can be challenging. I grew up in the Turkish culture, so I'm a lot more sort of used to Islamic values and customs than some of my colleagues that didn't have much connection with the religion prior. But of course, on the local islands, we tend to dress a bit more modestly, like shoulders covered, knees covered when possible. We're only really in swimwear on the boats. And it's always funny because when the tourists come, they hope to lie on the beach in a bikini. And then we're like, oh, sorry to deliver the bad news. It's not something we do on this island. Some local islands have bikini beaches set aside for tourists. Um, I'm not going to lie, it's hard being a woman anyway. Maldives has its very hard sides, but it's also got its very good sides. I feel, for example, is much more safe here than in other countries I've worked in. I can, walk out at night. I can walk around by myself. Maldivian men generally tend to be more reserved, so you won't really be hassled or haggled on the street as a woman or touched by someone overtly in public, which is something that, for example, happens to me in Europe all the time. And then once you know people in the community, they really sort of embrace you. And then once you're part of that group of people, they really have your back. So for me, I have an amazing group of friends and colleagues here, and they really take very good care of me. I think the challenge is more sometimes the island fever or the cabin fever. The islands are small, and by the time you've spent a lot of months here, every corner of the island, and there's only so many scooter drives you can do within a 10-minute time frame before you go, okay, maybe I need to go somewhere. And then obviously the availability of fresh produce. The islands are mostly sand. Not every island is able to grow agriculturally. Formula is, but the greens and the fruits that we're used to at home aren't as easily or readily available here or as affordable. And being from the Mediterranean, I sometimes do miss my selection of produce. But then if I choose between having peaches and, certain greens versus diving with sharks every day, I think I'm going to give up the peaches and go diving with the sharks.
It's basically tuna for breakfast, tuna for lunch, tuna curry for dinner, isn't it? Do you eat tuna?
Basically.
Do you eat fish, or is
I
that
learned
something
to
that?
eat fish here. I wasn't eating fish at all back home. I didn't like it as a kid. It was always too fishy. And that's also the first thing I learned in the Maldivian language, in Divehi, was how to say, this is too fishy for me. But Masra magada. But now I eat fish. If you are going to eat fish, this is probably one of the most sustainable places to do so, because all the tuna is pole and line caught. Or we actually eat a lot of other fish here in our household, like ruby. It's a deep sea fish. And, the fisherman that catches them is our captain, or our captain's friend. And he goes out with one hook and line, goes out with his little boat, catches it, comes back to the harbor, and we eat it within the like hour that it was caught. So here I eat fish. When I go home, I probably wouldn't, just because now I'm very spoiled and my standard for fresh fish is very high. My Maldivian colleagues don't eat it if it's not caught within the last few hours. Like if the fish was caught in the morning, they won't eat it in the evening. They're like, no, that's already too old.
Really? I guess they,
Yeah.
historically didn't have refrigeration.
Yeah.
Made sense.
So it was always like you go to the harbor, they bring the catch. The second they bring the catch, which is generally before dinner time, you select your fish, the guys clean it for you, you go home and put it in the pan, which is what we do on most days here as well.
You ever eat it raw, like sushi or sashimi?
Rarely. I don't like the texture,
Mm.
it's too squishy.
I was recently with Sylvia Earle at a meeting in Switzerland, and she's this great ocean explorer. For anyone who doesn't know, I think she's just past 90,
Yeah.
just had a birthday, and a National Geographic sort of heroine, and she doesn't eat any fish. I mean, she's basically of the opinion that we should stop certainly all commercial fishing in the oceans. And I have to say, on a kind of intellectual level, I agree with her. And it sounds like you probably do too. I mean, it's different in maybe island nations where it's such an integral part of their culture and livelihood for so many people. So I'm a bit torn on that. I mean, should people, like in other countries, should our listeners buy Maldivian tuna?
It's a good question. I mean, ethically, I was a vegetarian for many, many years. Prior to that, I was vegan. I still struggle a lot with eating fish. And I definitely can't watch it being killed. Like when I'm on the boat and the guys catch one that they're going to take home for dinner, I look away when they, have its last seconds. But then in terms of sustainability, for some countries, it would be way more detrimental environmentally to not eat fish than to eat what they catch. Like for the Maldives, to substitute the tuna, and the ruby and other things that they catch locally with one hook and line, one pole and line, to substitute that for, I don't know, Brazilian grown soy from the rainforest that gets shipped here, or sent here by cargo ship, which, aside from the damage to the rainforest, is also a lot of fuel and a lot of other production costs. So it's a hard one. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach. I do think large scale industrial fishing should be stopped globally because it's unsustainable and it not just on an environmental level, also on a human level. With the amount of cat just fell down. With the amount of sort of human trafficking involved and all the fuel costs and all the international sort of legal implications that come with that. I think the way forward is to do sort of what the Maldives does, which is only artisanal fishing, only pole and line fishing, and even their industrial fleets here are, men with one pole and line, and it just happens to be 20 of them on the back of a boat. It does in no way or shape or form compare to the scale of anything else that happens around the world.
Yeah, that's a very different picture to the the industrial krill fishery in the Southern Ocean, which is a complete abomination, which we're going to be campaigning on soon. And also, I think purse seining and fish aggregated devices, it's the absolute textbook unsustainable industry, which increasingly we just don't need. I mean, there's all sorts of alternatives to fish products now, including hopefully cell cultured for people who really want bluefin tuna. That won't have these incredible animals won't have to be taken out of the oceans. And as somebody who's been I've been diving in the Maldives and snorkeling, and you when you see them alive, you think these are just incredible animals.
We had a guest once who saw a tuna on a dive, and he genuinely was convinced it was a shark because it was so big. And we're like, no, that was a tuna. And he's like, really? And we're like, yeah. He's like, it's huge. I'm like, yes. If you don't catch them young, they can grow to enormous sizes.
You just got back from Tonga recently. I think you actually, speaking of Sylvia Earle, weren't you on a boat in Tonga with Sylvia and various other people doing something to do with whales? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I was invited to be one of the lead scientists for a very special project in Tonga with the humpback whales, working together also with the Lord Speaker of the Tongan government, Lord Whakawhenua, Dr. Sylvia Earle, and then Keith Tuffley, who we all know from Vila Institute, who was the expedition lead for this project. And it was a multi-method sort of research and storytelling initiative through which we hope to raise awareness for humpback whales, their remarkable journey of recovery, but also the upcoming challenges that are still facing them, while also conducting data collection on the local humpback whale populations of Tonga through eDNA sampling, so collecting water samples to look at tiny bits of DNA shed by all living organisms to get a baseline, hopefully, of the ecosystem there. Collecting humpback whale skin samples, which was my favorite part of the work. I love all those nitty-gritty bits. To analyze the microbiome on the whale skin, so the tiny bacterial communities that live there, which tell us a lot about their health and also a little bit as a proxy of where they've been. And hopefully, if possible, also to do a genetic analysis, so to be able to cross-match DNA from the skin samples, if possible, if the quality of the sample is good enough, with some of the photos and fluke IDs that we've collected to identify individual humpback whales. So the idea was to contribute new knowledge and new data to ongoing research efforts, but also hopefully to show the viability of some of these really low-cost methodologies to study these amazing animals. We also did acoustic monitoring to collect recordings of vocalizations. And yeah, all in all, it was an amazing project, and it was an honor to work alongside Sylvia, to spend so much time with her, to share the waters with her, and mostly really to learn from her and from her wisdom. And, she's overcome huge challenges. So to be able to ask her the odd question here and there and go, how did you do that? What's the challenge? What's the key? How do you do it? Was amazing.
Yeah, I met Lord Whakawhenua at New York Climate Week, and we talked about you and the project. And yes, Dr. Sylvia has to be a guest on the show pretty soon. She's agreed, so it's only a matter of time until we can pin her down, because she's such a such a busy person doing a lot of traveling.
Busy lady.
Yeah,
very
seriously.
busy.
But you talk about whales and sharks and the crossover. What about whale sharks? They're something that people go to the Maldives to see. I've never seen one alive. In fact, I've never seen one at all, alive or dead. I mean, do you see them? And tell us a bit about the conservation work for whale sharks.
Yeah, so they actually were the species that brought me to the Maldives back in the day, in my younger days when I was a master's student. I was in touch with the Maldives Whale Shark Research Program that then provided me with a data set to do my master's thesis. And then I came to the Maldives to volunteer for them and spend some time in the water and on the boat with them as well. And now one of my best friends, actually, Chloe, is sort of co-running all of the research programs. So our group, Miyaru, doesn't work on whale sharks because it's not a predatory sharks. So we really came up to fill that gap in the NGO landscape. As you know, every big megafauna species has its own NGO in the Maldives. Manta Trust is the mantas, Whale Shark Program is the whale sharks, Olive Ridley does the turtles. The corals have a few groups. And then there wasn't a national level NGO for predatory sharks, so everything that's not a whale shark. And that's part of why Miyaru was founded and started. But the Whale Shark Research Program has been doing amazing research work here, mostly in South Ari for the initial years, studying the aggregation there, which is predominantly juvenile males. And then since then, they've branched out to other atolls and islands as well. They regularly come to Formula every year to study the whale sharks here. And we generally get large adult females, which we don't see very often in other parts of the Maldives.
When you say
when we
large,
see
like how big is large?
large, like fully grown, like 12, 13, 14 and plus meters. Big whale sharks. I had a dive with my colleague Ricky, and it was just the two of us, and we got surprised by a whale shark just under us, and we looked at each other and we just couldn't believe it. And that thing was almost the size of our entire house. So incredible, and just so big. It makes you feel tiny. And it makes all your problems feel tiny.
Yeah, and they just eat plankton, don't they?
Yeah, filter feeding.
And I mean, they're not hunted anywhere, presumably. So, do they have conservation challenges as well? Yeah.
The biggest conservation challenge is tourism. So the amount of people wanting to swim with the whale sharks and the amount of operators going to one specific whale shark and putting all the guests in the water to swim with one whale shark. Sometimes you have 20, 30, 40 people in the water at once. Vessel strikes, they feed on the surface. So they're very vulnerable to boats driving over them and causing a lot of propeller injuries. So that's a really big issue. There's the majority of whale sharks sighted in South Ari Atoll at one point had propeller strike injuries of different shapes and sizes. But then also climate change, which we don't know very much about. but how changes in the water temperature affect, plankton and all the other little things that they eat, how that shifts around, and if that means that they're going to be going to other parts of the country to feed or to reproduce. We don't really know. It's sort of one of the big questions that is also still unanswered for many sharks, not just whale sharks.
What about great whites? Everyone's favorite cute shark, cute cuddly
I
type
wish
shark.
I wish we had them here. I would love nothing more than to be in the water with one. I mean, they're declining globally at a very sort of fast rate, not as fast as some of the other critically endangered species. But, South Africa has lost its great white shark populations. Everybody likes to blame the orcas, but another very big contributing factor is fishing. If you remove all the mid-level predators, there's not much to eat for the apex predators. And that's the case globally with, large-scale industrial fishing, basically hoovering up everything. You need big stuff in the water to sustain the really, really big stuff up top in the food chain.
Why? What do great whites naturally eat?
Large fish, other sharks,
Mm-hmm.
seals.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a theory, isn't there, that orcas were targeting them for their livers or something because they're seeing great whites with bites taken out of them on the beach. I mean, that's true, right? But it's obviously not an actual serious threat to their populations.
It's true, but it's not sort of a giant population level threat. I mean, 2 orcas can only eat so many great white sharks, but large fishing fleets can take out, thousands, if not millions, of smaller sharks, and hence remove the entire sort of food base layer that these great whites and other bigger predators depend on. It's all linked to each other,
Right. So what's the population level latest assessment of sharks globally then? I remember reading a paper in maybe Science or something that the shark population has fallen by 90% or something really depressing. And that was a few years ago. What's the latest data that you're seeing?
So there's been a 71% global decline in oceanic shark populations. That's the overall sort of global population estimate. If you look at specific species, for some it's up to 90 or even over 90%. Many species are now critically endangered, like for example great hammerheads, scalloped hammerheads, oceanic whitetips, and some of these sharks have had local or regional extinctions or sort of complete population collapses. There are parts of the world where oceanic whitetips are thought to have declined by over 98%.
Oh my God.
It's a serious, it's crazy. It's very crazy when you think about the fact that sharks has been around longer than trees. The sharks are older than the North Star. We had sharks on planet Earth before the North Star existed. And now we've wiped out the majority of them. These are really ancient predators in many ways like modern dinosaurs. And we've single-handedly managed to reduce their populations to the point of some of them not being around in the next decades. And that's something I'm really scared of. When I dive with some of the sharks here that are critically endangered, I think, okay, my grandkids might not get to see this if, we don't do the work now in the next 10 years. And that's pretty scary to think about. So I try not to think about it too much. But it is sad. It's very, very sad.
Yeah, because there were sharks at the same time as the dinosaurs, so they've been around for hundreds of millions of years, right? And the idea that they could cease to exist globally, some of these species in a decade or two, is frankly doesn't bear thinking about. But I assume that things were getting better, but it doesn't sound like it. Is there what can people do as individuals? I don't imagine many listeners to this show are sitting down to bowls of shark fin soup, assuming that's still a thing. But what can anyone do as an individual?
Yeah, I mean, it completely depends what part of the world you live in. If you live in Europe, the biggest thing you can do is to support all the ongoing work to stop shark finning and shark fishing in Europe, because most people don't know, but Spain and a few other countries are some of the world's top exporters for shark fins and shark meat. A lot of fish and chips in the UK is shark meat. A lot of fish and chips and
whoa. I mean, I try not to eat fish and chips, but I thought it was cod and haddock. How can it possibly be shark meat?
It's usually I have to pull up the study for you. There was a really amazing study showing that a lot of fish and chips in the UK is shark. It's just sort of smaller shark species that are just classified as whitefish. Yeah, like rock salmon, for example. There's all these code words, but actually it's shark. Flake, if you eat flake is a shark.
Wow. So I didn't know. I had no idea that Europe was was a major villain on this, and that's something we should definitely look into and campaign on for
Yeah.
as we plan it. So these sharks targeted like directly purposefully by European fishing fleets.
Yeah, generally. So particularly in Spain, they're targeted for fins and meat, and a lot of that then gets exported to Asia. But also they end up a lot as bycatch, obviously, and then still get processed. Pet food, cosmetics, fertilizer for your garden, and a lot of other everyday products that we take for granted have shark. There's actually a project I'm working on at the moment. I run a separate project to Miyaru called Anthropocene, so the human ocean. And
Anthropocene. Okay.
Anthropocene, yeah, it's a word play on the Anthropocene.
No, it's great. No,
Um,
I like it.
yeah. And the idea is to really show how human societies intersect with the ocean, but in ways that we don't normally think about. And, since I love sharks, very obviously, currently working on a little bit of a project to highlight how humans and sharks intersect in ways you wouldn't think. And I say to everyone I meet, you probably have had a shark in your life today without realizing, either in your skincare, in your vaccine, on your plate, in your cosmetics, or in your garden, and many other things. So the key thing people can do is, depending on where they live locally, supporting any initiative working for shark protection. The best thing you can do is to support shark protection in your country. And then the more countries we can get collectively, the more power we have globally. To check your cosmetics for squalene. It's a shark-derived ingredient. And then if you have squalene, either swap your cosmetics or message the brand and ask them to swap that for a plant-based alternative. And then the same, also checking your pet food and lobbying your pet food providers to not have shark, because I don't really want to be feeding shark to my cat or my dog.
No, neither
And
do
then,
I. And I had no idea that pet food would have shark in it or anything else. I mean, I bought some plant-based shower gel the other day. I thought, why would this be plant-based? Like, what could it have in it that's not a plant? But if it, presumably the non-plant-based one might have shark in it, for goodness sake.
yeah. It's pretty crazy to think about. Also, biomedical research. A lot of sharks being harvested for cancer research, for Alzheimer's research.
So what's that about? I don't get. I've never heard of this.
So because sharks are so ancient, their DNA and sort of their entire bodies are basically archives of evolutionary information and evolutionary success and resilience, really. And for the longest time, people thought that sharks can't get sick or sharks can't get cancer. And a lot of these beliefs, and mostly due to a lack of more targeted science on these topics, led to sharks being harvested and sort of being put under the microscope for some of this research. There's a lot of research into looking at shark cartilage, looking at shark liver oil, looking at shark skin, and the use of all of these products for improving human health. Sometimes also design and engineering. So shark skin inspired a lot of innovations in modern sort of air flights and airspace. Sorry, my English has left me. I'm also being eaten alive by this land shark. Um, yeah, I mean, they're evolutionary master creations. So it's no surprise that we're looking to learn from them about how we can heal and improve ourselves and be more resilient to changes in human society and human health.
Yeah, I mean, for biomedical research, okay, or whatever, maybe one or two sharks, I can understand that. But you don't need to have a population level impact for that kind of scientific activity. So I just can't see why that's allowed to continue. And for the commercial shark fisheries, I mean, they've just got to stop. And yeah, I think producer Rob, can you nod if you think We Planet should campaign against shark fishing in Spain as well? There's a I think that's a fairly fervent nod. So you consider that one of our future campaigns as well. Can people donate to Miyaru and help your work in the Maldives as well?
I mean, we are a small volunteer-run NGO, so we welcome any support. We do have a donation link on the page. We also welcome, if you don't want to donate money, if you want to purchase equipment for us, we also welcome that. If anyone's listening that is in the biomedical field, things like microscopes and lab equipment are all things that are really hard to come by here in the Maldives and that make a big difference for our work, but also for our abilities to teach, because the students don't always have access to some of these kits and resources. If people want to come diving with us and allow us to help them connect with sharks and change their minds and show them how incredible the animals are, that's also something we always welcome, either as research volunteers or just as dive guests. So I work very, very closely with a dive center called Oceanic Nomad Divers here in Formula. So we do daily tiger shark dives and thresher sharks and other amazing species of sharks as well. So there's lots of ways to help. And yeah, highlighting the importance of sharks and supporting, shark tourism, which keeps sharks alive, supporting that shark sanctuaries like the Maldives and Palau and other countries are being upheld. Those are a few big things we can do or anyone can do.
Well, we'll put a link to Miyaru in the show notes. And is this threat to the gulper shark about restarting the fishery there, is that still a live issue? Can people sign a petition or somehow make their voices heard to the Maldivian government about that?
Yeah, so there's a petition coming out in partnership with Blue Marine Foundation and Maldives Resilient Reefs on Only One. So that will be shared very shortly on our socials as well, that people can sign. And it's really a request to the government to not introduce gulper shark fishing or any shark fishing and to uphold the sanctuary here in the Maldives. And then there'll be a few more campaign videos and infographics coming out on Blue Marine Foundation, Maldives Resilient Reefs, and Miyaru's pages as well.
Okay, and what's have you been out already diving today? I know you
Yes.
basically spent half the time in the water. You have
this morning, of course.
Give us just before we wind up. I want to know what your day was like. Get a sense of what it's like to live in one of these Maldivian islands.
Yeah,
the
it's
kind of
beautiful.
Work you're doing.
Start the morning with a cold coconut juice from my fridge. Hop on my scooter, drive to the harbor along beautiful palm-fringed roads. Hopped on our doni, which is a very traditional old doni that was handmade by its previous owner, made from wood with beautiful carvings. We love her. She's old, but she's beautiful.
And a doni, for people who don't know, is a Maldivian traditional boat.
Yeah, it's a Maldivian boat. And then we went diving first on the reef to look for thresher sharks, which are a very beautiful and elusive shark species. Then we had our tiger shark dive. We only had 7 tiger sharks on today's dive, which for Formula is a quiet day. We're much more used to having sort of 15 plus. And then we went into the blue with our guests to allow the sharks to come up under us and for them to see the sharks in deep water environment as well. And then I got back home, fed this little potato, the cat, land shark, and now I have a few hours of data analysis ahead of me before giving a guest presentation about shark conservation, shark biology here in the Maldives, and then preparing the underwater cameras for tomorrow's surveys.
Oh wow, gosh, that is a big piece of kit. Yeah,
big piece of kit. It's one of the few cameras that we have in the team. And then preparing for some of the next exciting research projects, preparing equipment, storing samples. We have a tiger shark poo sample in the freezer, which is a big success. It allows us to look into their diet. My dad laughs at me. He says, "Is this your life now? You just collect shark poo?" I say, "Yes, I am living my dream. I get to collect shark poo."
Yeah, I agree. What's not to like? Oh, it sounds like you have a miserable. You sound like you're having a miserable time of it. So I can only commiserate with you. And if you want a nice holiday, come and visit us in grey, rainy Wales. Happy to host you anytime.
But Wales has blue sharks in the summer.
It has blue sharks?
Yes, there's amazing opportunities to snorkel with blue sharks in Wales.
I actually never heard of blue sharks, so that shows how ignorant I am. But
I'll send you details.
Yes, do. You're doing an incredible work with Miyaru. You know, I've been following your work with the Maldives Ocean Alliance for a few years, and I can't recommend it too highly to our audience. So, Zuzu, just thanks again for sharing your time and your expertise and your experience with us. It's been incredible, and we will put a link in the show notes to Miyaru so people can visit. And anyone who's listening, don't worry about the carbon. Literally, you should go to visit Formula. It's spelled Fuvamula because it's pronounced a bit more shorthand. But yeah, and you will have the most incredible shark diving experience that it's possible to have, I think, anywhere in the world. So Zuzu, thanks again.
The best. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me and for your time. And hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to Saving the World from Bad Ideas, a We Planet podcast. We Planet's a movement of citizens and scientists dedicated to defending the science and solutions we need to save the world. Please do subscribe and share a nice review. It helps us spread the message. We'd also love to hear your feedback and suggestions at our email, podcast@weplanet.org. Please also join our podcast mailing list and we'll let you know when a new episode drops. Just go to savingtheworldfrombadideas.org or weplanet.org/podcast right now. See you next time.